So I will warn you, the video that we're watching today is very strange. I wouldn't say triggering by any means. It's just somebody decided to make this video and put it out there for all of us to see and all of us to enjoy. Okay, so this video is by a conservative creator named Misha Petrov. She seems to be a very quiet-spoken conservative individual within this community. She seems to be doing quite well for herself. She does a lot of what seems to be shorts content that surrounds mostly conservative behavior and in turn ends up being very hateful behavior adjacent. Of course, it's always painted with this velour of innocence and modesty and Christian fundamentalism. Usually when somebody is using their religion to criticize an entire group of people, it's never a good look. It's just not cool. It's not the cutest look. So it's one thing to sit here and criticize the left for our political ideas, or maybe all of the different stuff that we put out into the world that is meant for criticism. But how someone dresses, just kind of like none of your beeswax. Just none of your goddamn beeswax. So this video is titled, Why Does Gen Z Want to Be Ugly? And so when I was just perusing for different content to review, because that's what I wanted to do. I admit I was patrolling the internet for things that I might not like, for you to consume me not enjoying it for some sick and unknown reason. Much like this girl is doing. She seems to be patrolling the internet for individuals that she finds ugly and is going to make an 8-minute video about why they're ugly and why they want to be ugly and why being ugly is bad. Which, call me crazy, that we don't do that. Girly, in adulthood, we don't do that anymore, or ever. We don't call, even if we don't call people ugly. We don't do that. When people are ugly, usually they have a reason, and usually that reason is none of your business.
Because we don't want to be friends with someone that looks like this, because these people look like they'll start World War III if they get misgendered. Demi Lovato, for example, or Sam Smith, and their whole transformation, and they have this ugly style on the outside, but they are often ugly on the inside as well, much like all woke individuals who are narcissistic and miserable.
So the video starts with a very strange montage of what she deems as ugly individuals in the Gen Z generation, although some of these people do look like they're older than the Gen Z generation and belong to our wonderful group, the millennials. And us millennials, we do have a tendency to value conventional beauty standards, because that was something that was shoved down our throats very adamantly over the last 30 or so years. For most of our individual lives, it's all been be skinny, be beautiful, wear makeup, like do all these things in order to attract a man. And she does go into the nuances as to why some individuals do try to subvert the male gaze by presenting themselves as quote-unquote ugly, reducing the idea that somebody would want to represent themselves in a gender non-conforming way to either wanting to get rid of the male gaze or buy into the male gaze is just very reductive. It makes it so that everything that any woman does, whether or not they present as female, whether or not they identify as female, like literally anybody who is perceived as feminine by a passerby deserves to be infected by the weird wounds of the patriarchy, and that we are doing it for them. Like, I put on this makeup for a man. Anyways, I'm gonna watch the video now. I'm going to actually watch the video. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to pause it when I think that I have something to say, but here we go.
The patriarchy. Hey guys, it's Misha and welcome back to my channel. So something I think we've all noticed by now is that there's a certain look to these woke social justice warriors, certain clothing and hair and makeup, and there's a reason that we have this stereotype of a blue hair feminist, because a lot of them do look like that.
This is very disturbing to me because
Today I want to explore why that may be, because in the beginning I thought, these people just want attention, they want to look unique, or they might be looking for a fight even, which happens a lot.
That they don't necessarily
is definitely part of it, but I think there's something else going on, and I've heard a lot of young women in Gen Z especially talk about this, and that is the attempt to move away from the male gaze, which in feminist theory is when males tend to objectify women, and so it's oppressive. So these women want to move away from that and change their style so that it's not what men typically find attractive.
That wasn't their choice.
I'm looking for outfits to repel.
But what do conservatives know about consent?
A while ago we had this beauty pageant, was born male and won. Maybe they have an amazing personality, maybe they're really funny and an awesome person, but this is a beauty pageant. We are lying to ourselves and to other people. All throughout history we can recognize real beauty. If someone from the past or someone from the future came to this phase and this trend of the social justice warriors looking like this, I seriously doubt that most of them will agree, yes, this is beautiful. And I know that they do this to try and...
And a lot of these people are objectively beautiful. These people are objectively... Oh, there goes the yelling.
Hey guys, it's Misha and welcome back to my channel. So something I think we've all noticed by now is that there's a certain look to these woke social justice warriors, certain clothing and hair and makeup, and there's a reason that we have this stereotype of a blue hair feminist, because a lot of them do look like that.
This is what the patriarchy looks like. Men, women.
And today I want to explore why that may be, because in the beginning I thought, you know, these people just want attention, they want to look unique, or they might be looking for a fight even, which happens a lot.
So no one in any clothing configuration or gender configuration is out here looking for a fight, as this woman has just stated. A lot of these videos that these conservatives always pull of like us social justice warriors just like screaming bloody murder for no reason, there's usually a reason. And it's because those people in the videos have been provoked for usually like a bit. They've been provoked for a significant amount of time, and then the video is conveniently clicked to show their meltdown. And a lot of people who are having these meltdowns that are being publicly mocked are on the spectrum of some sort, whether or not that spectrum is the autism spectrum or it's the spectrum of mental health overall. Making fun of people for screaming in public is just kind of what we do on the internet. I mean, people on the right are always in groups screaming bloody murder, looking like really crazy weirdos. I mean, we're not going to pick battles there, so if I pick and choose a random configuration of videos that I Google search out of nowhere, immediately, what am I going to find? I'm going to find a conservative person, or a Republican, or an evangelical QAnon weirdo yelling. Because people yell like weird, like, okay, so when you're viewing a video of what you perceive to be a blue-haired feminist, a social justice warrior screaming because they're triggered, just keep in mind that usually the reason why they're screaming is because A, they have been provoked for some reason. No one screams for no reason. And also, B, only people that are like Karens and stuff like that do that. Just be mindful of that. That's not a representation of our group at all. It's definitely a representation of some of them, just like this video is a representation of some Republicans. You're not gonna fool me with the re videos anymore, because I've personally had moments like that, and I'm sure a lot of you have also had moments like this. They just haven't been portrayed on the internet, where it is convenient. And a lot of us had these meltdowns before camera phones, thank God. But anyways, back to the outfits.
And that is definitely part of it, but I think there's something else going on, and I've heard a lot
of
women in Gen
wow.
Z especially talk about this, and that is the attempt to move away from the male gaze, which in feminist theory is...
So this is what we were talking about before, where she's just going on about how we're trying to move away from the feminist idea to look pretty, like conventionally modest conservative evangelical women. They think that it is beneficial to look pretty for your male suitor that brings your children into the world, you know, like that's something that they value. But all of a sudden, when we value that because we value each other as humans, we value the opposite sex. It's, as feminists, it's not this top-down patriarchal system in reverse, like we're going to just create a matriarchy out of nowhere. We believe in equality, but like I said before, that's usually something that they don't learn about in the church. So
if you're looking for outfits to repel men, you've stumbled on the right video. We're
so she's doing a little compilation
with quite a low crotch area. This is just
how
to let them know that we do in fact have bigger balls than they do. I hope you repel many men today.
But I do find this funny
women
because
want
the point that
to
they're trying
dress
to make is that
manly?
we should dress for ourselves, right?
Okay.
Wear what you like, wear what makes you comfortable, what makes you happy, and not think about men. Yet the focus here is on men. There are women, of course, who will wear, 6-inch heels that they're not comfortable in, they don't really want to wear, but they're doing it for men.
We are comfortable in them. We don't wear them if we're not comfortable in them.
Specific with their hair or makeup or whatever, not for themselves, but for men. In this case, you have girls and young women, getting body modifications or tattoos or piercings or doing something specific with their hair.
So like also the specific examples that they've chosen of Gen Z people, I've also 100% seen alt-right people that look exactly the same. And here's some examples right here. So this thing isn't mutually exclusive to like the Gen Z experience. And also she's using Gen Z as a term for left-wing and progressive adjacent people, which I find very funny because that's silly.
Tends to be dyeing it pink or blue or purple, or shaving it all off, just because that's what they're told will
But who's
repel
the
men.
they?
You're doing your part.
Who's this they that's telling us? Conservatives are so good at self-reporting how they get their information. Like, who is the they? That they, in this context, I'm talking specifically this conservative woman and her friend group or whatever, they. Who does she think is the they for us that's telling us that we should subvert the male gaze by shaving our heads bald? Like, who is the they in this scenario telling us to do that? Is it Sam Smith? Because Sam Smith is very new and is actually riding off of the trend and is now able to become popular because of the new modern acceptance of non-binary individuals within the music community, which is something that a lot of queer musicians suffered for not being able to fully express their queerness within the industry of fear of being, outed or ostracized in some way. So with this new wave of musicians that she's referencing to being non-binary and satanic, like what is the problem if like it's none of your business?
Hard as a modern day feminist. So they're still failing to dress for themselves and the focus is still on men. They're worrying about whether or not some man will like it.
So apparently we're just worrying about if man will like it. Okay, all right.
They are opting for more of an androgynous look. And there is, of course, the body hair movement, which, listen, I don't think it's a big deal. If you
Apparently
don't
she doesn't think it's a big deal, but it's a big enough deal to talk about it for like 5 to 10 minutes.
To show off their body hair, their armpits or their legs, and they'll post it anywhere but on their head, of course.
Call it a little quirk, if you will. I have hair in my armpit. I have it there for a few reasons.
This person is a queen,
lazy.
by the way.
2, the patriarchy. And 3, your response to them tells me everything I need to know.
And then they get applauded for it. They even expect likes and comments from all these other girls, saying that they are stunning and
No one's like
having body
expecting likes. No one's expecting them like there's a quota. They just happen to be there.
hair for not shaving. But then they also get really upset when men don't want to date them because they may have a preference. But if they have that preference, then that's misogynistic, of course. Which is silly. Women have preferences too. Some women don't like men with beards, for example. That's fine. But when men have preferences with body hair or facial hair or whatever, that's a problem. But again,
I mean, it's not a problem. It's the language. It's the language that gets used when men are voicing their preferences. It's very important. So when a woman is like, oh, actually, like, I prefer to date men with beards as opposed to baby men who don't have beards. Like, that's inherently a misogynistic thing to say, because why would the man without the facial hair not be as quote-unquote manly? But in this instance, it's the language that she's using specifically. If she's like, oh, I prefer men without beards because I like to ride them like a seal, like that's different. It's a very different scenario. So in these body hair debates when we're hearing the men in this this anti-men, what's the word? Misandrist, like these misandrist women's that hate men and want to constantly put them down in some way will usually find the language that triggers the men in some way to do this, which is usually the height thing. We found the one thing in many conversations and with many men, regardless of wealth, regardless of creed, they are always triggered by the height thing. And that's because they know that there's so many different ways that they can criticize women for presenting their bodies, but the one thing that they can't change is their height. I don't think it's a fair criticism to constantly be harping on men for being short, because literally we're short. So if we're saying that people who are short are bad, we're just saying people like we're bad too. It's just saying. It's how the language is used, how we are socialized as people is very important to the conversation. So when men are vocalizing their criticism of our bodies, it's usually unsolicited, unwanted criticism that comes out of nowhere under the expectation that we're doing all of this stuff to and with our bodies for their presentation, for their entertainment. And I'm not here for your entertainment, okay? Just keep your drink and give me the money, okay? Just keep your drink, give me the money. So we're not doing these things for men, and men aren't necessarily being tall for us. It's just something that I guess biologically speaking maybe women enjoy, but socially we've learned that men who constantly have to live with the insecurity that, like, almost the same sort of insecurities that we as women have to live with on a daily basis, they are driven insane, and we don't really want to hang out with them. And that's where we get the short guy syndrome thing. So women often have preferences that are for protective reasons. Our preferences are based on an evolutionary culling of sorts. We want to make sure that our offspring is free of growing up to be a Ted Bundy, for instance. Also, we want our husbands not to be a Ted Bundy. So there's a lot of selective processes that we have to do in order to make sure that we're not going home and getting Ted Bundy'd every time that we go home with somebody. Men don't necessarily have to worry about that. They have their other worries, regardless of whether or not I believe they're that big of a deal. They do have their worries, and we should be here to hug them when they worry about them. So women have preferences, whether it's personality or physical based, usually because men are dangerous. And they show their dangerous qualities in very obvious ways that make it very easy to cull them out of the batch, okay? So men don't have to do that. So why are they so goddamn critical about our bodies? It doesn't matter what our bodies look like if you're not currently having sex with it. If you're currently not pursuing coitus with that body, then what does it matter what it looks like? Does it have to walk by you and it has to be visually pleasing? No, it doesn't. You don't, that's weird. That's weird and narcissistic that anybody would want that. And it's very telling of the headspace of this particular woman that she wants every single person who even scrolls by on the internet to look a certain way.
I'm just not convinced that a majority of these women are doing it for themselves, because it's not considered stereotypically feminine, right? And same with the trend of being heavily tattooed or a lot of piercings, having no hair or colored hair.
Okay, but she reiterates once again that she's not convinced, quote unquote, not convinced that these women in this video specifically that she's clipped, let's example that these are the people that she's talking about, are not doing it for themselves. She's not convinced that the Gen Z is getting tattoos and that we're dyeing our hair and that we're wearing more, I guess, like considered masculine clothing for ourselves. Like, she's just not convinced. Just like I'm not convinced she's dressing like a nun or a elementary school teacher because some man told her to. I'm literally not convinced that she's doing any of this for herself. I also really enjoy the like no makeup look. I'm very much liking it. She's not an ugly girl at all, but also I'm gonna say it. It's very weird that she's got so much to say about these women's looks when this is what she has to look like. I've always been in the party of women that believe that if you're one of those girls that's like, oh, I don't wear makeup. I don't wear makeup. I just wake up like this. I'm not convinced that you're doing it for yourself. I'm more in the field that you don't know how to do makeup, and that's fine. Just don't lie to me and say that I just don't wear makeup. I just don't know. Just don't know how. Okay, it's fine. I have a lot of friends that don't know how to do makeup, and they just opt out. It's not their thing. Don't want to do it, so they just don't do it because we do it for ourselves. So if you don't want to do makeup, you just don't do it. But I feel like the people that are constantly talking about how they never wear makeup. Oh, yeah. Stop lying. Anyways, weird aside. Also, so there's a lot of space in between those eyes, girl. There's a lot of space.
Of course, these trends are always changing, and I do believe that freedom of expression is important. But I do have 2 points that I want to discuss. And the first one is,
don't worry, freedom of expression is
important. From Gen Z,
important.
they'll post this, and they'll say, well, this is so unfair that I can't find work, right? This is my style, and I should be able to find a job, but it's really difficult. But there are things that are expected of you at the workplace, and one of those things is being dressed appropriately for both men and women, whether that's, wearing a suit and a tie or a clean
so this
dress
is
shirt.
actually
Instead,
a big fat lie. This is a big fat lie depending on where you work, because Gen Z people don't have a lot of work experience, and in the workplace, when I was a Gen Z, or back when I was considered the new fresh and on the market generation, starting to feel old, back when I was the hot young thing, workplaces were very much keen to hire me. They were very, very keen to hire us because we were very moldable, low experience individuals. We didn't know what our rights were as employees, and in the States, you have a lot of rights. There's so many different rights that you have as a working individual, whether or not it's with the federal government, or whether it's with your state government, your individual employee. There's usually a lot of benefits that you can reap from being in a company that has like a union, or companies that want to make sure really badly that they don't get a union, so they're going to accommodate you with a lot of other more unorthodox things. And don't let those shiny, fun pizza parties fool you into believing that your labor isn't important and that your expression at the job isn't something that is also should be valued. And I'm not saying that every single person should be able to like have 100 face tattoos that all say like fuck you or something like offensive like that. Like, I don't know if face tattoos are the best example, because I personally believe the face tattoos are really cool. So let's just say you're have like really distracting colored hair. Like we can argue that there are some places where having like really bright colored green hair might be considered inappropriate. I wouldn't say that a lot of those places are the places that conservatives think that are considered professional. So for example, the office is not a place where the employees are going to be policed very much about what they wear. Usually your company has a modest guideline of what you can wear, but I've pushed the limit in a lot of the jobs that I've had where I've got to sit at a desk and no one sees you. There's no customers coming in and seeing you. It's literally just creating an atmosphere. And companies want to create an atmosphere that's accommodating to their employees, especially those companies that aren't unionized and want to over accommodate in those unorthodox and strange ways, which are no dress code. So there's going to be a lot of entry-level positions where you don't have a dress code and you're not expected to conform to society's norms of dressing a certain way under any circumstances. When I worked at the bank, oh my gosh, I'm telling you about personal things about my life, crazy. But I worked at a bank in Canada, and for the most part, there wasn't really a very strict dress code towards the lower level employees, and that was to indicate the hierarchy. So as you move up within these different companies, you might be expected to dress differently and maybe dress a little bit more modestly or conservatively. But we on the left are talking about diversity and how diversity is often policed in these situations in the workplace, and how professionality is often synonymous with whiteness and white presenting behavior. And that's the criticism that she's blatantly ignoring in this video. We're not saying that, oh yeah, I just want to show up to my CEO job and I want to wear a clown suit every day. Even though that would be totally fine. He's the CEO of the company. It's literally, he gets to choose. But regardless, if I want to come to my Starbucks job with 2 nose rings instead of 1 nose ring, that's not that crazy of a demand to ask of your employer that you're literally giving your labor to. So why do I have to look a certain way to be professional? What does professional mean? I mean, I purposefully dressed in a way that isn't professional today. I'm wearing slipper boots. So what in their eyes, or what is in this girl's specific scenario, deemed as professional for the job? Because a lot of what she's saying here is very vague. She's not saying specifically which job. So I asked the boss of my boss when I noticed that he had his arms rolled up and they were full of tattoos. His arm was entirely sleeved up. It was pretty hardcore. And I said to myself, I was like, oh wow, that is specifically what we were told was never going to happen. That you'd never go to the bank. You'd never see a police officer with tattoos. You never see a doctor with tattoos. You're never going to see a banker with tattoos. And blah, 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 blah. That is a big lie. Because I asked him, I was like, was it... did you get these before or after your job? And he was like, that's not a thing anymore. That's not a thing. That hasn't been a thing for a long time. He basically just laughed at me and was like, as long as you don't have a swastika tattooed on your face tomorrow, you're fine. And I'm sure to some conservatives that would be a violation of their human rights.
Look like a teen going through some emo phase, and then they're confused why employers won't hire them. You have to be professional, otherwise the workplace would look like a circus. And the other point is that this style is unlike the, let's say, goth or emo teens expressing themselves, because this style has a lot of connection to specifically gender ideology.
Here's a non-binary fashion tip that is not going to be for everyone.
And what's wrong with being connected to gender ideology? What does the word gender ideology mean?
Face
Oh my
because this shit cured my f***ing dysphoria. When I look this f***ing cool, bro.
You betcha.
Are you a thembo?
Yeah, right?
So someone will post this style and get a bunch of comments saying, you look great, I love how you look non-binary, right? You have that look to you. And then they start out, as a tomboy or feminine man. You check back
because they do
later and they're getting top surgery, irreversible surgery, because they get all these comments saying you look amazing, and then they get pushed into that direction of getting surgery.
Also, none of your business. None of your business. None of your business.
Often convinced
I could basically just kind of talk over her the entire time and say none of your business.
And then especially the young teenage girls, will go get top surgery, and then they'll get applauded for that. Now, back to the whole male gaze, there are actually women who are now calling men predators if they want to date a woman from a different country.
Why do you think so many men are traveling overseas to find wives in other countries?
In other cultures, a lot of women are more submissive.
Yeah, they're pervy.
Okay, so she jumped topics so incredibly quickly that it's kind of hard to navigate where the thought process has come from. So, okay, she says that top surgery is bad and it's irreversible, which it's not. It's not an irreversible surgery. It's not an irreversible surgery. You just get them lopped off and you can get them lopped back on. I am also under the impression that you can also reactivate the mammary glands. They're not entirely like sawed off forever. That's a different, I'm pretty sure that's a double hysterectomy, and that's an entirely different procedure than getting top surgery. Top surgery means that you no longer have all this fatty meat on top of your on top of your chest area that makes the world see you as a boob machine that has boobs. Some people don't want boobs. Some people don't want boobs for a variety of reasons. And the reason why top surgery is so popular nowadays, and you've probably maybe noticed that it is popular nowadays, is because it is covered by a lot of insurance policies because it is considered a medically necessary intervention for a lot of dysmorphic individuals. Also, it's not that invasive. It is reversible. It's a reversible surgery. So if I decide I want to lop these titties off, get them mounted on the wall back there, and then decide like, oh, like I actually I'm feeling myself again. I want new boobs, and I get some like double D's put in. That's totally fine. That's gonna work. So she can rest easy knowing that all of these teenage boobs are gonna be fine, which I personally think is kind of a strange thing to be fixating on. Like, she literally went out of her way to go find videos of trans teens changing to criticize them, which is
FBI, open up!
And then so that transitions directly, as if almost like Freudian direct transition, into predators and predatory behavior and criticism of predatory behavior. Leftists and rightists, all of the ists, should probably condemn predatory behavior when we see it. We should know what it is, how to recognize it, and how to criticize it properly, but also how to recognize it is very important. She goes on to say in these clips here about how women in foreign countries who are not necessarily, okay, I guess it's like not that they're not educated. That's not the right word. It's just they don't speak English. So not being educated and not speaking English are completely different things. Like, people that don't speak English aren't illiterate. They don't not understand things. But there are nuances of our societies that are lost in translation in many instances. Also, she says that young teenage girls are getting top surgery, and I'm pretty sure in most places you have to be 18.
A lot of women are more submissive.
Yeah, they're pervy.
Men are traveling overseas to countries that have less money and less education. It's because they want a woman who is dependent on.
Yes, we're aware why you guys go and get foreign girls. Because you can't handle women. That's why.
And this whole thing is so offensive and ignorant, because basically what they're saying is that if a woman is not from the US and she's not woke, then she is uneducated, she doesn't have opinions of her own, and she can't be outspoken.
So she misses the point. So that video of that interview, they're talking about specific countries. Like, they're talking about specific countries, not just like any foreign woman from like any country is going to just be like, oh my god, I do not know anything about this patriarchy, please educate me. That's not what's happening. So what's happening here is that men are going to foreign places and getting wives, which I don't personally think is like always going to be a predatory thing, obviously, because you're gonna like find love anywhere. But the comment that is literally on this video that they're talking about, the comment is in all caps from a random man saying, "This is why we get foreign wives now." And so the response from this woman was like, yeah, you get foreign wives now because you can't handle women. You can't handle American women. We all know that American feminism is different than international feminism. Like, don't play dumb with me. Don't pretend that you can. Okay, what conservatives do a lot of in these scenarios is they try to play into our sensibilities of guilt, and white guilt specifically. Okay, so she thinks that in this scenario that if she says, oh, this is offensive, it's actually offensive, and I'm the woke person for believing that these individual women across seas, they all have individual autonomy and they're making the choice to marry American men, and us Western ladies saying that they don't have the autonomy to make these choices on their own is offensive. Like, she thinks that that argument on its face is just enough. And to some people, sure, it might be enough. But if you are of a diverse group of people, you might know that there is a problem, an overarching problem of men, of the conservative echelon of the variety, coming in and finding women from disenfranchised communities, not wealthy, rich, educated communities. They're going to communities that have women that aren't educated, and they're not educated because they're not woke. They're not educated because they're not from the Western world. They're from countries that exist with such a much more poignant version of the patriarchy than we have. They're in danger, like, to ignore that and to pretend that you can put this little blanket of, oh, but it's actually offensive, and you don't want to be offensive, do you? You don't want to be canceled on Twitter. Well, we don't give a muff. We don't give a muff. A lot of us have friends who have had scenarios where their parents or their cousins or even their sisters or siblings themselves have been in scenarios where they've had to depend on men for financial freedom in the countries that they're from, and then in turn the only freedom that they were ever granted was being able to work in American capitalism. That's not really a fair trade-off. I wouldn't necessarily think it's that voluntary of it. There's not much consent there. So sure, a lot of women who are not necessarily educated in where they're going to believe that, oh yeah, sure, like, I'll marry a man and he will do all the things and I will clean all the stuff. They come to America and think like, this is different. I like it. And so no, nobody is saying that these women in the foreign countries are less educated because they are not woke or because they don't vote for Joe Biden and all that crazy nonsense. They're literally not educated. Like, oh, okay. Anyways.
And she can't be outspoken, and that's why men go for her. So the Western women think they are superior because they are empowered and awake, right? It's the women from other countries who are educated and can be just as outspoken and have opinions and actually can still look normal, which a lot of people here in the US seem to struggle with. So can you blame men if they choose to try and find a woman from a different country? The thing is that this style doesn't just repel men, it also repels women, because we don't want to be friends with someone that looks like this, because these people look like they'll start World War III if they get misgendered. Demi Lovato, for example.
We're not the ones starting World War III.
And they have
you guys
this
are.
ugly style on the outside, but they are often ugly on the inside as well. Much like all woke individuals who are narcissistic and miserable.
This video specifically, this man was harassing this woman or them for a while. Okay, fast forward just a little bit through all of this nonsense and screaming. The conclusion here is she's just mad that they had a beauty pageant and a woman who was born a man won the beauty pageant, because she believes that trans people are ugly and don't deserve to win beauty pageants because, oh yeah, they might have a good she says, oh, they might have a good personality, or they maybe they're really funny and blah blah blah. But then she reiterates, this is a beauty pageant and you have to be beautiful to win it. But if they won, they won the beauty pageant. So therefore, the judge that isn't you, that you're not, you're not the judge of this beauty pageant. So therefore, the person who won the beauty pageant is beautiful. Objectively, or at least objectively speaking, to the panel of judges that she's so clearly bitter about making this choice, which is weird. It's weird to hyperfixate that on the conclusion of this video. It's like, by the way, there was a trans woman. Oh god, I gotta clutch my pearls. There was a trans woman that won a beauty pageant. I need a moment. Like, what is the world coming to? That's weird. Like, that's psychotically narcissistic to... I really hope, personally, this isn't a beauty pageant that she was in, because that would be even more embarrassing. To be like, and look at all these women that are just way more personable and nicer and just represent their community better than I do, winning beauty pageants. And she's just bitter, making this weird video, purposefully looking like a librarian for some reason that I will never understand.
Looking like this, I seriously doubt that most of them will agree, yes, this is beautiful. And I know that they do this
we don't all look like that.
Their inner turmoil or what they're feeling inside, but this says nothing about who you are. It's just a distraction. The only thing that this tells me is to try and keep magnets away from your face, or that I have to walk on eggshells around you because you might have a temper tantrum about your gender identity.
That's not a funny joke.
So again, I think it's a great thing for men.
You know, it's not a funny... I'm gonna just go to harp on this. The magnets on the face joke isn't funny because most piercings don't react to magnets. They don't react to magnets, like specifically because the people designing piercings know that humans could come in contact with large magnets. They don't respond to magnets. They're made of a different kind of metal. You goddamn fool. Uncultured swine.
I think it's a great thing for men and women to be able to express themselves through fashion, but this feels like they're just trying to be unique, while at the same time looking like copies of each other. Just copy and paste this one non-binary.
Okay, so then she ends with saying that all of us Gen Z people look like copies of each other, as if this woman doesn't look exactly like every other conservative lady that you've ever seen in your entire life, like on purpose specifically because they are mass-produced to do the God's bidding, I guess. So we don't all look the same. I would argue I look different than other people do, and other people look different than me. And people like to get piercings and put things on their face because of artistic expression, which is something that unfortunately this isn't even a criticism to this woman. God, this isn't a criticism that she does not look like a creative person. I mean, look at that wardrobe. Look at this like design for everything. It doesn't scream to me like I was it just doesn't scream to me like I was given Crayola for Christmas. It screams like she was given like embroidery, like sewing stuff for Christmas, or a cleaning kit for her future husband's house. Conservatives really like to forget that they exist as the norm, so when they're criticizing us as being abnormal, good for you. Good for you. You've made an observation, and that observation somehow garners them a decent amount of views, but really this girl's channel isn't anything to bat an eye at or clutch your purse over. It's just another one of those conservative think channels that whether or not they're randomly funded by like PragerU, University, Turning Points USA, or if they're just like individuals who just seem so passionate about making videos about calling people ugly on the internet for some weird reason. So all of these people work together in this community, and we just kind of live, learn, and love together. Sharing, judging, living, learning. Definitely no centrist. I definitely find the fence sitters very politically insufferable, because it's almost as if it's for them better to be right in any scenario than it is to actually like fight for whatever principles that you have, regardless if you might be wrong in the end or if you might have to change or evolve your positions. Centrists always seem to find themselves on the right side of any issue because they always play two sides. There's always two sides to every issue. I mean, what about their side of the story? Super convenient for those people in most arguments. Centrists tend to water down issues that are very complex and usually go far and beyond the scope of whatever political nonsense that they're used to as centrist individuals. So more radical ideas, either on the left or on the right, just kind of tend to scare them. So it's easier to just play both sides, wait it out, and then eventually see what Twitter says. Just go with that. So if you look at the rest of her variety of content, it all just seems to be the same thing over and over again, because that same thing has been working, so why change the format at all? Mostly, it's just like anti-LGBT content, which frames trans people as either a super duper predator people, or us, like gay or queer adjacent individuals, as these people that are just so broken for something. And golly gee, I wonder what's constantly harming us and making us have that inner turmoil that she was so critical of. There's not much content here. And what is here is embarrassing, to say the least. So you can tell that this person seems to have like a very high view of what they look like, and I just... Okay, so that was Misha, or whatever her name is. That was a lot of just like hateful language, disguised as this flowery, nice, like, oh, I'm just looking out for you, girly, kind of scenario. And it's embarrassing. That's all it is. It's embarrassing that there's people consuming this content. It's embarrassing that there's people putting this sort of content out there as entertainment. It's not entertainment to just sit there and just be like, these are the things that I think are ugly, and then use actual footage of individual people to reiterate that point. And the point being that they should change the way they are because of your individual sensibilities. That's an incredibly narcissistic view of the world. Alright, thank you so much for watching with me today. I'm sure that was a strange journey through a lot of strange lands, but I'm glad that we at least made it through the other side together, safe and sound. So if you like videos like this, continue to watch them. I'm going to continue to try to make videos like this at least every week or so. And if you want to hear more political things, then I would click on the channels right here. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and have yourself a good day, and just try to go and be a little less modest, and maybe go and schedule that appointment for that abortion that you've been waiting for, or maybe just wear some clothing that is incongruent with your gender, because that's the good fight. That we're fighting the good fight, and that's all we can do to seemingly combat these sensibilities of the most modest individuals in the planet. Apparently that's all you can do. Arm yourself with the weapon of gender non-conforming clothing. Make sure that wherever you occupy, that everybody knows that you are using pronouns. Because the people that want to call us out for that behavior are bad people, and we want to make them uncomfortable. I don't like conservative people because they are bad and annoying. So apparently if Abby Shapiro is allowed to sit there and make a video about 8 minutes long of dismissing our points by saying, no, I disagree, that's bad, and nuh-uh, you shouldn't do it, then apparently that's my opinion then. Nuh-uh, no, it's bad, don't do it, and end of the line. Bye. I worked there. Eat pizza. Straight out of money.